Hey guys, what's up? Chris Blum here after somewhat of a long hiatus with another video, and today I wanted to talk about something that is fairly topical with the events that are going on in the world right now, which is that of rent relief for your company. So as a bit of background for those of you that don't know me, my name is Chris Blum. I am a commercial real estate broker and work in the Bay Area. I work with both tenants and landlords, mostly office product, some R&D and flex product, and I list just about 1 million square feet of office space. So in the past few weeks, I have seen quite a few rent relief requests from tenants and wanted to give you insight to help in case this is something that could help your company, and also to help understand how the landlords are viewing it on their end. So the first thing to understand is while the CARES Act created certain protections for owners of multifamily product or for you as a homeowner, there's ways to get deferment or forbearance for the underlying mortgage payments. This is not the case for commercial properties. So your landlord is still running a business. They likely have their mortgage payments, the operating expenses of the building, and their operating expenses might even have increased because most buildings are still keeping the building staffed and may have hired additional cleaning help to help with sanitizing the building and keeping it up and running for those businesses that are essential. So with that quick caveat, I have found that most landlords do want to help and they are willing to listen to reasonable requests, but there are a lot of these requests coming in. So what most landlords are having to do is understand which companies are truly in need and which ones perhaps are just looking for an opportunistic way to reduce their expenses. So the first thing to ask yourself is, has your company been affected more than average? And certain companies that I've seen that fall into this category are companies that plan events or conferences. Maybe you are a company that provides elective surgeries, or a business that sells to other businesses that are not in the essential category. So maybe you sell equipment to the companies that provide these elective surgeries. In this case, your revenues may have been drastically reduced. You can't operate, you may still have expenses, you're trying to keep your employees on payroll. And so in this case, you would probably be a company that a landlord would feel qualifies for any help that they're willing to give. Another question, and again, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not advising necessarily that landlords ask this question, but another question that I've seen asked by landlords to tenants to see maybe if they qualify is whether or not they've applied for the payment protection plan or the PPP loans that have been rolled out in recent weeks. Again, the reasoning here is that if the company is truly in need, if they have expectations that their revenues are going to be cut, or that for whatever reason the business is going to be going through a difficult time more than average, then they probably should be looking into the resources that are out there to help them. And if for some reason they choose not to apply for the PPP loan or they don't qualify, then maybe this is a sign to the landlord that they aren't truly in need of rent relief. So if you do feel you qualify as a company that has been affected more than average, here are the things that I would recommend you do to increase your odds of having your landlord help you. Number one is to put together a very clear ask. So ask your landlord for a very specific amount of rent relief and a plan for how that is going to be paid back. In most of the cases that I've seen, companies are asking for 2 to 3 months of rent relief with varied plans for paying it back. So for example, they may ask for 50% relief for May and 50% relief for June, and then state that they will pay that back in July, August, and September in equal installments. It is possible to ask that this payment be spread out over a longer term, but you have to realize that this increases the risk for the landlord, and they may want something more in return. For example, I've seen landlords ask for increased credit support, so they want additional security deposit or letter of credit, because again, they're taking on the risk of giving you relief up front in exchange for the promise of payment at a later date. As I mentioned in this last example, a lot of the companies have asked for a percentage reduction. It's a lot more likely that you will get a 50% reduction for 3 months than 1.5 months of no rent at all. And again, that's because the landlord is still having to pay their mortgage payments, they still have the cost for operating the building, and this is especially true if your lease is a full service lease to where your operating expenses are baked into that number. If you have a triple net lease, then perhaps you could offer to pay the full operating expenses and a smaller percentage of the triple net rent. And that way the operating expenses are still being taken care of for the landlord. The other opportunity that may exist for certain companies, if they do feel that they are happy in the office for a long time and they see having a use for that office for a long time, is what's called blend and extend. So you could, for example, choose to renew your lease for an additional period of time once your current lease is set to expire, and suggest a reduced rate for that period, and then blend it with your current lease and your current rate. And what the effect is to lower your current rent, but to take on a much longer lease obligation. So this could work for some larger companies. Perhaps maybe you don't necessarily qualify as a company that has been affected more than average, but you still would like to see some sort of relief right now, and you're willing to commit to a longer term lease, then this may be a solution for you. So along with the proposed plan, I would also submit very detailed financials showing how you were affected more than average, as well as a plan for repayment and a plan for your company's recovery. Again, the landlord is running a business, and while they would love to help everyone, they need to choose to help companies that they see having long-term viability and being able to pay their rent and stay in the project long-term. So showing your landlord that you are a viable business, that your business will recover, but that you just need help in the short run will help the landlord feel more comfortable giving this relief to you. I hope these suggestions were helpful. I'll link an article I wrote in the description down below with more details, and if you have specific questions, feel free to reach out. My email and phone number will also be in the description below. As always, if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing and hit the like button.